So this is a quick video that is going to talk about the prefixes you're supposed to use when you have branching out in the side chains, such as the isopropyl, isobutyl, and secondary butyl, and so on and so forth. So let's say you have a straight chain with a long carbon-carbon linkage, and then if you have a side chain which looks like this, then obviously this is going to be a 1, 2, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So either way, this is going to be a 5 something nonane. So this is the fifth carbon atom. So that much I'm sure you all know. And here's a 3 carbon chain, a 1, 2, and a 3. So when you have 3 carbons on the side chain, this is a propyl. This is a propyl. And this is going to be a 5 propyl nonane. But the only thing is, this is not a propyl, which is a straight chain propyl. Since you have 3 carbon and you have a branching out on the second carbon here, that is going to be your iso. So you have to use an iso prefix for this propyl when you have branching out from the second carbon. So that is your isopropyl nonane. Now let's say you have the same 9 carbon chain, and here you have a chain that looks like this. So here you have a 1, 2, 3, there is 3 carbon chain, so 1, 2, 3, and the branching out comes on the first carbon, so this is going to be a 5 propyl nonane. And you don't need to have any prefix here because it's a straight chain. So if it's a straight chain, you just you're just supposed to give the name as it is. So that is going to be a propyl nonane, and some people will just add an N. That is fine, but the N is not necessary, which means normal propyl nonane. That's a normal propyl. Again, you can just write it as 5N propyl nonane, or you can simply write it as 5 propyl nonane. Either are fine. So both are 3 carbon chains, and if the branching comes on the second carbon, that is going to be a isopropyl. If the branching comes out on the first carbon, it is going to be propyl. So if we have a nonane, and if we have, say, like this, 4 carbon chain, 1, 2, 3, 4, again this is going to be simply a 5 butyl nonane. 5 butyl nonane. So just like you have a propyl here, this is going to be butyl. If it's a straight chain, that's the easiest, so it's simply going to name it as the alkyl, where the alkyl comes from the alkane that has the same number of carbon atoms. So if you have 5 carbon chain, then it's a pentyl, and so on and so forth. So that is that. Now let's say you have a butyl, except the butyl is going to be on the second carbon. And it's like that, second carbon. So for propane, when you have 3 carbon chain, you can either have it on the first carbon or on the second carbon. So these are the only 2 possibilities here. These are the only 2 possibilities you get. If you are touching on the third carbon is same as the first carbon, because you'll have a straight chain like this one. Therefore, there are only 2 possible ways you can have a branching out on the 3 carbon chain. So this is one possibility, and that's other possibility. So as long as you are able to identify the N propyl and the isopropyl, that's good. Now when it comes to a 4 carbon chain, you can either have a straight chain with 4 carbon atoms end to end, that is a butyl. If you have 4 carbon chain and the branching comes from the second carbon, the point of attachment, then you will call this a secondary butyl. So 5 secondary butyl hyphen nonane. That is the second possibility. Now there's a third possibility where you will have a branching out that looks like this. So you'll have like that. So if you look at this, this is a chain of 1, 2, 3 chain. So you don't have a 4 carbon chain like this. So you don't have 1, 2, 3, 4, or you don't have 1, 2, 3, 4. You don't have a chain that runs end to end. You have a chain that is going to have a 3 carbon, and then a 4th carbon branches out from the second carbon. So if you have that, this is still a butyl, but this is going to be a isobutyl. So this is going to be now, for example, a 5 isobutyl nonane. and you just have to be able to identify the pattern, which is why the easiest thing that I would suggest you to look at is you being able to see the Y formation you see here on this 4 carbon chain. Whereas when it comes to an isopropyl, it doesn't have 4 carbons, it has only 3 carbons, but still you're able to see that there is a Y pattern here. There's a Y pattern here. So you see that, you look at, you need to add the iso prefix to that. So for butyl, there are these 3, and then there's also a 4th possibility. So if you have a nonane, and if you have 4 carbons, except the 4 carbons are more compact. So this is carbon 1, carbon 2, carbon 3, and carbon 4. So when you have the 3 carbons, all 3 of them attached to the main carbon that is attached to the main chain, then you call this a tertiary butyl. A 5 tertiary butyl nonane. So that is that. So now simply speaking, if you have a 3 carbon chain, 1, 2, 3, and the point of attachment is the first carbon, so 1, 2, 3, that's an N-propyl. And if you have a 1, 2, 3, a 3 carbon chain, and the point of attachment is the second carbon, that's an isopropyl group. And if you have 4 carbon chain, 1, 2, 3, 4, and the point of attachment is the terminal carbon, this is a N-butyl. If we have a point of attachment for a straight chain except it is attached to the second carbon, that's a secondary butyl. That is secondary butyl. Still a end-to-end chain. 3, 4. Of course, if you put it on the third carbon, and this becomes carbon 1, that becomes carbon 2. So therefore, it is the same as this. Therefore, when you have a straight chain, you have only 2 possibilities where you can have a linkage that comes out of, or 2 positions. And if we have a butyl, except it is not a straight chain butyl, it's not going to be like that. It's going to be like that. And if that carbon comes out, this is 1, 2, 3, and a 4. This is what we call the isobutyl group. And if we have all 3 carbons attached to a central carbon, now making a total of 4 carbon count. So this is 1, you have 2, 3, and 4. Then this is going to be a tertiary butyl. So yeah, you don't need to add the N prefix as I just mentioned. You can simply say butyl, and the N butyl is implied, but the other ones you definitely have to mention these prefixes. So that's pretty much it. And as I told, I won't ask you pentyl structures, but in case you're curious, maybe this will help you understand this further. Let's say you have 11 carbon chain or 12 carbon chain, doesn't matter what the chain length is. If you have something like this, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is what we call the N-pentyl, or just a pentyl. And if this is a 12 carbon chain, this is going to be N-pentyl dodecane. And let's say this is the 5th position, so this is going to be 5 N-pentyl dodecane. If this was the same long chain, and if we had something like this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now this is still a straight chain, and this, based on what you saw here, this will be what we call the secondary pentyl. And if we had a straight chain, and if this was something similar to what you have here, where you have Y formation, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, then this is what we call the isopentyl, and so on and so forth. But yeah, don't worry about the 5 carbon side chains. I would not ask you questions, as in, you don't, of course this you should be able to answer. N-pentyl you should be able to identify, pentyl, hexyl, and so on and so forth, but you don't have to worry about secondary pentyl and isopentyl and neopentyl and so on and so forth. But these are the ones you definitely need to know when given in naming. So hope this helps, and we have already seen this in the class in detail, but I just want to give a video because I had one student who contacted me to clarify on this topic. All right, so hope this helps.